something unexpected was waiting for BTS in Texas. After traveling across the world and moving through the intense schedule of the Arirang World Tour, the group had finally reached Arlington. And while an arrival might normally be just another step between cities, this one carried a completely different feeling. The cameras were ready, Army were watching, and somewhere ahead, one of America's biggest stadiums was waiting for BTS to take the next step. The important part wasn't simply that BTS had reached Texas. It was what their arrival represented. 4 weeks, Arlington had been a date on a calendar, a concert announcement, a future event that fans could count down to. But suddenly, that future was becoming real. BTS was no longer thousands of miles away. The Arlington chapter of the tour was about to begin. Around the airport, anticipation had already been building. Fan footage and online posts captured the excitement surrounding the group's arrival, with people watching closely for any glimpse of the 7 members. Phones were raised. Cameras were ready. Every small movement suddenly mattered because, for ARMY who had been waiting for this stop, even a brief sighting could feel like a major moment. And that is what makes an arrival like this so fascinating. There is no giant stage yet, no opening music, no massive production, no sea of lights filling a stadium. It is simply the moment when BTS physically enters the city where thousands of fans are preparing to see them perform. But that quiet moment carries its own kind of energy. Because once BTS arrives, the countdown changes completely. The Arlington shows are scheduled for August 15th and 16th at AT&T Stadium, meaning the first concert is almost here. According to the city of Arlington, these performances mark BTS's first K-pop shows at the stadium, giving the stop an importance that goes beyond another entry on a world tour schedule. For ARMY, that changes the atmosphere. This is no longer just another announcement to celebrate online. The members are in the same city. The stadium is waiting. Fan gatherings are happening. Official merchandise activity is underway. And the thousands of small preparations that have been happening behind the scenes are suddenly converging into one weekend. That is when Arlington starts to feel less like a location on a map and more like the center of the BTS universe. The timing makes it even more intense. BTS has already been moving through the North American portion of the Arirang Tour, and Arlington follows the Baltimore shows before the group continues toward Toronto. The schedule leaves very little room for the excitement to cool down. One city ends, another begins, and almost immediately, another stadium is waiting. For fans following the tour from the beginning, that pace tells its own story. BTS isn't simply visiting one location and settling in. The group is moving through a massive international schedule, carrying the same tour from one audience to the next. Every city gets its own atmosphere, its own memories, and its own connection with the group. Now Texas gets its turn, and ARMY in Arlington had already started preparing before the concerts even arrived. Fan-organized activities around the concert weekend have helped create an atmosphere that extends beyond the stadium itself. Cup sleeve events and other community gatherings give fans a chance to celebrate together before the main shows. These events may look small compared with a stadium concert, but they reveal something important. The concert experience doesn't begin when the first song starts. For many fans, it begins days earlier. It begins with planning outfits, meeting friends, trading fan-made items, taking photos, traveling across cities, finding official merchandise, sharing countdown posts online, and eventually standing in the same place with thousands of other people who have been waiting for exactly the same moment. That is why BTS arriving in Arlington matters so much. It turns anticipation into reality. And then there is AT&T Stadium. The scale of the destination changes everything. At the airport, the focus is on seeing BTS arrive safely and catching those brief moments that fans can replay later. At the stadium, the entire experience becomes something else. Music, lighting, choreography, screens, sound, and tens of thousands of fans come together to create the actual Arirang concert experience. The contrast is almost cinematic without needing to exaggerate it. One moment, BTS is simply moving through an airport. The next, the same members are preparing to walk into a stadium built for enormous events. And Arlington has been waiting for that transition. The city of Arlington has specifically highlighted the significance of BTS performing at AT&T Stadium for the first time as a K-pop act. That gives these shows a historical angle that cannot be reduced to fan excitement alone. BTS has performed in major venues around the world, but every new stadium creates another chapter in the group's relationship with global audiences. Texas is now part of that story. And there is another detail that makes this moment particularly interesting. The fans don't have to imagine the concert anymore. They know exactly how close it is. Before the arrival, fans could still say, BTS is coming. After the arrival, that sentence feels completely different. BTS is here. That small change in wording carries a huge emotional difference. The waiting period has entered its final stage. There are no longer weeks of wondering where the members are or imagining what the Arlington weekend might feel like. The schedule is unfolding in real time. That is also why every photo and video from the area can suddenly generate another wave of excitement online. Fans are looking for clues about the group's movements, sharing updates, and preparing for the concerts. Of course, not every claim circulating online should be treated as confirmed, especially when it involves private movements or unverified reports. But the overall picture is unmistakable. Arlington is ready, and ARMY are ready with it. What makes the story even more interesting is that the airport itself isn't supposed to be the biggest moment. It is the opening chapter. Think about what the arrival represents. BTS has completed another part of its journey. The group has crossed another enormous distance. They have reached another city where an audience is waiting. But the real destination is still ahead, AT&T Stadium. That is where the quiet anticipation of the airport is expected to transform into something much louder. The difference between those two environments could hardly be greater. At the airport, fans wait for a glimpse. Inside the stadium, fans will be waiting for the first note. At the airport, cameras follow every movement. At the concert, thousands of light sticks can become part of the show itself. At the airport, the excitement is concentrated around the arrival. At AT&T Stadium, that excitement can spread across an entire audience. And that is why the arrival footage matters. Not because it is necessarily the biggest event of the Arlington stop, but because it captures the exact moment before everything changes. For ARMY, there is something emotional about seeing the journey move from one city to another. The group has been on the road, and every stop becomes a temporary home. Fans in one city get their moment, then the tour moves forward. Now the spotlight has shifted to Texas, and Texas appears ready to make the most of it. The official schedule has made the timeline clear. August 15th and August 16th are the nights when BTS will take over AT&T Stadium for the Arlington stop. Before that happens, however, there is this strange period of anticipation where the city knows something huge is coming, but the biggest moment hasn't happened yet. That feeling can be even more powerful than the concert itself. The stadium lights are not fully taking over the night yet. The opening music hasn't started. The members haven't stepped onto the stage. But everyone knows it is coming. And sometimes that final stretch of waiting creates the strongest tension of all. Because once the first concert begins, the anticipation disappears. The question will no longer be whether BTS has arrived. The question will be what BTS does with the stage. And that is where the Arlington story becomes much more interesting. The arrival is only the signal. The fan gatherings are only the build-up. The merchandise lines are only another piece of the weekend. The real test comes when the doors open, the audience settles in, the lights go down, and thousands of ARMY realize that the moment they have been waiting for has finally arrived. For now, though, Arlington is living in that space between anticipation and reality. BTS has reached the city. ARMY has begun gathering. The stadium is waiting. And the countdown is no longer something distant. It is happening right now. But there is one final question hanging over the entire weekend. If the excitement surrounding BTS is already this intense before they even step onto the stage, what will happen when the lights finally go dark inside AT&T Stadium? That is the moment Arlington has been waiting for. And it is almost here.